Well, folks, welcome to the Noble Man Podcast and our special series that we call Manhood in the Media Spotlight. Got another article that I want to kind of process with you today, and it's the title of it is Stay the Course, How to Keep Your Faith in College. It was posted at Christianity Today, and the author is Brad East. So essentially, it's back to school time, and so this author is noting that and talking about how students who are going off to college can hold on to their faith. And man, if you've been in the church and around church leadership for any length of time, you know that we have this tremendous concern about children who are raised in the church, but then when they go off to college or when they leave home, they often have a tendency to drift. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. People have tried to find correlations and causations and everything. Everyone's got a different answer for that. But this particular author is just saying, hey, when you head out in that direction, here's some ideas, here's some strategies that you could do to keep your faith when you're in college. Now, I'm bringing this to you as a father of 4 who have all been to public colleges, and they all had their faith tested in various ways at various times. And so I find that to be important that we prepare them and we talk to them about how to hold on to their faith, how to stay close to the Lord in college. This is a valuable conversation. So if you're leading a family, you've got kids that are headed in this direction, or you're leading a church, this is something for you to think about. But I would also say that much of what we're talking about here applies to you wherever you are in life. If you're gonna live a robust faith and you're a Christian, you're a Christ follower in a work environment that's non-Christian or that could potentially be hostile, then you still need to do these things and follow these guidelines. I think they're going to be helpful. So let me just summarize them for you. So he came up with 7 ideas, and you could move higher or lower on that, but here's what he said. For Christian students going to college, this means figuring out how to keep the faith and deepen it. This retention depends in part on learning how to flourish in mind, heart, body, and soul, how to love God above all things and your neighbor as yourself, how to do college right, not by avoiding mistakes, which isn't possible, but by making wise decisions early to avoid the more common and ruinous obstacles. Now, I'll just make a quick statement here that we did a Manhood in the Media Spotlight about how leaders learn from their mistakes. And if you haven't listened to that, you need to go listen to that, and it would be a great thing for you to talk about with your student or with anyone in your household or your friend realm about how do we learn from our mistakes. Because here's a little secret, folks. Your kids are going to make mistakes. If you're trying to raise little perfect Johnny or little perfect Sarah, it is not going to happen. I don't care how good of a father you think you are. They're going to stumble, and how you help them navigate those mistakes is critical. So even having an open mind, an open strategy, an open conversation with your son or daughter as they go off to school is going to be helpful for them to succeed in these areas. So first, out of the gate, first recommendation is to join a church. So I remember this specifically when I was in college, man. I got connected with the Baptist Student Union. I loved it. It was great. We worshiped differently than we did at our home church. Man, I had lots of young friends. It was vibrant and exciting, but you know what? As cool as that was, it was not the church. And so I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we help our students understand is when they go off, at every transition in life, look for a church. As a matter of fact, I just had a young man text me this week. He said, Mr. Young, I'm thinking about going to this large state school next spring to do engineering, and I'm curious, do you know any good churches in the area? I'm like cheering for this young man because he's asking even before he gets there, help me find a good church. And listen, I know this can be challenging as a dad because you want them to navigate to where you want them to go. Well, don't do that. That's a bad idea. They're going to reject that. But let me tell you what they might accept is the wisdom of another individual who knows that area well that you trust. So reach out to someone that you know in that area and invite them to engage your son or daughter and invite them to church. So you sometimes with your kids, you kind of have to work the angles, because if you speak directly into their lives, often they reject it. If you want to know how I know this, then we'll have another conversation about that. But they will reject your wisdom but listen to it when the same words are said by a different voice. So you gotta lean into that. So help them find a church or encourage them to find a church. Delete social media. Guys, I'm a grown man. I just turned 55 years old, and I have to confess to you that sometimes I find myself watching reels of guys cutting down trees with chainsaws just because I'm fascinated. And all of a sudden, I can be there having spent 20 or 30 minutes watching foolish videos of trucks getting stuck or trees being cut down. So what you do with social media doesn't even have to be morally bad. It just becomes a pit that you throw some time into at the very least. And then there's all these dark places that you can go to. So this author's recommendation is just delete social media. Get rid of Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all those things for a season so that you can focus. Number 3, and I love this because I'm a reader. Not every guy is, but build a library. Guys, one of the things that I'll tell you that I started doing with our kids is every Christmas, I know a lot of folks give pajamas. Everybody gets the same pair of pajamas so that they match on Christmas Eve. At our house, what I do on Christmas Eve is I buy a spiritual development resource. And so our Christmas Eve gift tradition is that everyone gets some book or resource that will help them with their spiritual growth in the coming year. And so I love to think about what each of my kids might be interested in reading and learning. And so helping them develop a library of resources, whether it's a good study Bible or a good devotional tool or a biography. I mean, one of my sons is in Europe right now, and he finished reading Eric Metaxas's book on Martin Luther and just went to Worms so that he could stand in the courtyard where Martin Luther stood on trial. And it was because he loved to read and wanted to go and experience part of what he read. It was awesome. So help them build a library. Number 4, make friends. Now listen, guys, friends are gifts that you can give to yourself, but you have to be intentional. If you're going to sit in a dorm room or you think your kids are going to just have people flock to them, it's not going to happen. They have to get out and mix it up. And I would encourage you to encourage them to make sure they're going and participating in some sort of activity, getting connected with a ministry as well as the church, but finding some friends, because you just keep hearing our culture right now in the media. We keep talking about loneliness and isolation. And boy, if a young person at this season of life could begin to invest in very rich and robust relationships with peers, that the skills that they learn there will serve them well through their entire lives. I can't tell you how many guys I know my age who say, I have no friends. The Surgeon General even put out a report about this in recent months about the epidemic of loneliness in our culture. So encourage your kids as they go to school, and even you, if you take a new job, wherever you go, make connections, be a friend and have friends. Next thing, number 5, friendship with Christ. Now, it sounds odd that they would put this at number 5. Maybe you think it should be number 1. But the whole deal with that is to make sure that Jesus is your number 1 friend, that you get to know Christ by spending time in the Word and investing in that relationship so that you have the living Word, so that you have the bread of life to share with your friends. And then what does that lead us to? It leads us to the next recommendation, and that is to throw parties. Just not that kind is what he says. Just throw parties, just not that kind. So we're not talking about raucous, morally degradant parties or anything like that. What we're talking about is like dinner parties. So begin even at a young age to practice hospitality. You know, my wife and I, 4 kids in the community, and we wanted our house to be the place where all the kids would come and hang out, because we knew what was going to happen at our house. We didn't know what was going to happen at other houses. And so we practiced hospitality in front of our kids. And what that helped them to begin to understand is they wanted to have a room in college where other kids would come and hang out. And so they could be hospitable to others. They could practice hospitality. Man, you start practicing some of these disciplines early, and all of a sudden you begin to see God using that to multiply your ministry and his kingdom. Number 6, eat well and get some sleep. Guys, Encourage your kids who are going off to school and making transitions in life to take good care of themselves physically. We have to eat well and we have to rest. And then the final thing is say thank you to everyone. We have to practice gratitude. And I think sometimes we forget how important it is to say a simple thank you to anyone who does anything for us. And so if we can remind our children and ourselves, see, part of what I think is so important of this in this scenario is you could look at all 7 of these characteristics, and we're gonna share a link with you in the show notes to this article. You could want and pray for and expect, and you could even demand at some level that your children try to do these things when they go off to school, expecting that it's going to produce the type of spiritual maturity that you want to see in their lives and you've hoped for. But let me tell you this, folks, they are unlikely to do these things if they haven't seen you practice them in your personal life in their homes. And so if you really want to raise a child that's going to be successful holding on to their faith as they transition into the work world, or college, or the military, then these would be great things for you to practice. Don't wish and hope that your child will join a church and become an active member if you aren't demonstrating that for them in your own home. Don't expect that they're not going to be addicted to social media if you can't turn Fox News or ESPN off on a regular basis and get in the Word yourself. Don't expect that they're going to be spending time with friends or reading or any of those things if they don't see you demonstrating not only what that looks like, but the joy that it brings in your life. Because guys, I'm just convinced that our children are watching us and they're taking note of what they see us do, and our success and our capacity in these areas is going to impact what they do. They will be hospitable because you are hospitable. They will rest and exercise and care for their bodies because you do. And they will express gratitude because you do. So, guys, I think read this article, pray over it for your kids who are going off to school, but then make sure that you are living some of these things yourselves, because it's the example that you set that's going to have a huge impact. And listen, I'll just go back to this, that the greatest example of all of these things is Jesus Christ. And so we have to see ourselves as growing more and more like Him in the way that we deal with friends and hospitality and people and the Word. And so keep leaning into Jesus and upholding Him as an example for your kids and those around you who are watching you. God bless you, folks. That's it for today's Manhood in the Media Spotlight. We'll be back with another one next time. God bless you.